How can I help you, Mr. Hausman?
Hey, I just tried your new app, but all it did was let me check into the room. I'm really hoping that in the second version you could make it more practical, so I could play like Candy Crush on it, or maybe could even do my taxes.
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the No Vacancy podcast with me, your host, Glenn Hausman. I'm excited to have you here as we are getting our way closer and closer to spring. I know it doesn't feel that way because it's still February, but 3 weeks from now, we'll be in the blissful spring weather, and I expect it to instantly turn from too dang cold to absolutely perfect out. All right, it won't, but one thing that's going to get me over it is the fact that I'm going to be on the road going to a lot of great conferences this year, and I've got somebody from a conference that I absolutely love coming up in just 1 second. But before we do that, I want to make an announcement to all of my wonderful folks out there. As you know, we've got this amazing contest that's happening right now, and I'm doing this in conjunction with the great folks at Joieful. That's Joiful. You could go look them up. They do great travel planning packages in New Orleans, and they've got one that you are not going to believe that Joieful has put together with the John Hotel, which is a great interstate property. They put together some amazing packages for the 50th anniversary of Jazz Fest this spring. These packages are the last remaining packages you could buy anywhere in the world. And now it's your opportunity to go to Jazz Fest and see the city like a true rock star. The package is called the Mista Big Stuff Fest Experience Packages, and it will sell out. So I want you to be a part of that 50th anniversary of Jazz Fest this spring. I want you to go and I want you to have a great experience with this. But should you not pay for this? We've got an amazing contest because we are going to be sending away one lucky winner that gets all the bells and whistles, a luxury hotel stay, airline tickets, transportation, a dedicated concierge during your stay, and lots of other goodies. It's more than a $4,000 value, and you guys could go see the 50th anniversary of Jazz Fest for free. That's right. Host our courtesy of Joieful, the Jung Hotel, and us here at the No Vacancy podcast. This is an exciting contest. Check out how to enter the contest in the show notes on social media. We're really excited. All we ask for is for you to register for the show, and you too can have a chance to be in there. Speaking of fun stuff, I got Mr. Lee Hunter with me of Hunter Hotel Advisors and the ubiquitous Hunter Hotels Conference. Lee, I got to ask you, man, you want to go to New Orleans, baby?
I love New Orleans, Glenn. My bachelor party was there. I'd love to go back.
I bet you're still recovering.
You have no idea.
Yeah. I got to tell you, Lee, New Orleans is one of my favorite cities. It is the quintessential American city to me because it feels so different than every other American city that there is.
And, honestly, from what I hear, all my friends that have been, Jazz Fest is the time to go. They all say, skip Mardi Gras, go to Jazz Fest.
Right. I was there once on the cusp of Mardi Gras, and it was just too dang crowded. I think Jazz Fest is the place to be, so be sure to enter that contest, Lee, because maybe you and I could party together in New Orleans. Or better yet, get the Mr. Big Stuff package, and we'll be hanging out in the Big Easy.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So enough of the shameless self-promotion. Now let's do some more shameless self-promotion for you guys. But I did want to I did want to talk to you about because your organization, while you've become very well known for this great conference that you do coming up on March 20th through 22nd, right? Those are the dates.
Correct.
In Atlanta, Georgia. You folks actually started out as an advisory firm, helping companies buy and sell hotels. So I thought it might be a great place to talk to you about what is the status of transactions. I speak to Bruce Ford all the time about the development pipeline, but what's actually happening in the world of transactions as far as Hunter's concerned?
Well, from our 2018 now with the year over, we've got our year-end numbers in. We transacted on 112 different assets, a little over $800 million in total volume. And I think that's an indication, the market's up from where it was in 17. There was more volume done. I think we're going to continue to see increased volume in terms of transactions as we go through 2019 as well, especially the first half. Having just come back from Los Angeles and the Alice conference, I assure you that there's a lot of product on the market right now, and a lot of equity looking for deals. So transaction volume, I expect, and I think if you read, any of the publications that my friendly competition put out, I think everybody expects 2019 to continue with a increase in volume from a transactional perspective.
So let's break down the fundamentals of why you feel that transactions are going to rise, because some of the things that I hear contradict that, right? Maybe people are asking too much money. Maybe people are claiming that it's too hard to get cash. But at the same time, I keep hearing stories about a lot of outside money coming into the hospitality market, that new money, and they're interested in doing a lot of deals out there. What do you think, though, are some of the fundamentals that you think are specifically going to drive some of those transactions going into 2019?
Fundamentally, I just think there's a lot of money out there looking for good, solid returns.
Right.
And, you see 70% of our deals last year were quote unquote institutional ownership groups.
Right.
Whether that be private equity funds, whether that be publicly traded companies. It was institutional in nature. And what they're doing is they're recycling capital in terms of moving their legacy assets that they bought that were 2 to 3 years old. They've owned them now for 3 to 5 years. And instead of them doing the next big renovation, they're recycling that capital into groups that don't mind coming in, buying a 7-8-year-old asset, doing a renovation, a PIP, and then they'll continue to own it for, they'll get a 15-year license agreement from the brand and they'll own it from then. So it's, if I can say it, it's Wall Street selling to Main Street.
Interesting.
Right? But then in turn, after that institutional group sells the, 6, 7, 8-year-old asset, they're looking to acquire assets that are 0 to 3-year-old.
Yeah.
So they're doing the same thing elsewhere. Blackstone is a very large client of ours, and everybody on both sides of the equation, everybody says, "Oh, wait a minute, Blackstone, they're selling 40 some odd assets. They're usually the smartest guys in the room. If they're selling, why should I be buying?"
Right.
My response, quite frankly, is, yeah, they're selling 40 some odd assets, but they're going to acquire 40 some odd assets this year as well. So, okay, they're going to be the largest net seller, but they're also going to be the largest net buyer of assets.
Yeah, and that's one interesting thing that I don't think that we talk enough about, is that whole idea of recycling that capital. I think that sometimes we get caught up in the separation between the buyer and seller without thinking about that deeper strategy of what you just laid out so perfectly and eloquently, that in order to make money, sometimes it's not in the property itself, it's in getting rid of that property and then creating a new asset that you could either develop the market from the ground up if it's a new build, or just, find efficiencies or find a way to reposition that asset, et cetera, and then 3 to 5 years from now, sell that too. So, Lee, I think you guys are in a great position because no matter what happens, you're in the middle of it. How cool is that?
Yeah, being in the middle of it's good. We got a saying around here. We don't like nice, steady growth. We want everybody wanting in or everybody wanting out. It's 100 miles an hour up or 100 miles an hour down.
Right.
Nice, steady doesn't work well for us.
That's interesting.
There's no transaction volume going on. But again, when you look at, I think we're getting into a cycle again where Wall Street is happy to sell to Main Street, and we're that conduit between the two.
Right.
And, the conference is a large, helps us do that. But it's also, we spend an inordinate amount of time up in New York, on Wall Street, literally, with our clients, planning out what they want to do, next quarter, next year. And then in turn, we're able to bring that back to our offices and our network, around the country and say, hey, Blackstone wants to sell a property down in Fort Lauderdale. We have offices down there. We know the regional guy who wants to buy that property from Blackstone.
Right.
Blackstone's gotten to the end of its useful life. That someone else can come in and say, you know what, I can do a renovation. I can get a 15-year license agreement from the brand, And, oh, by the way, it's only operating at 25% NOI margins. I know I'm going to increase that to 30 to 35%, and I'm going to do very well. Thank you.
Right. Now,
so it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Now, this is an established strategy that I've witnessed in the couple of decades that I've been in this business. But maybe you could give me a little bit more insight on why X company wouldn't just do that themselves. Why do they feel like they're better off selling it to somebody else who's going to maximize opportunity at that particular property, and then they take that capital and move elsewhere? What's the philosophy behind that move?
Well, a lot of it is how long have a lot of your institutional investors, they're funds, right?
Right.
And there is a defined life of the fund. And whether it's a 3-year, 5-year, or 7-year hold period, there's a defined life for when those funds monies have to be invested.
Right.
And then when those funds have to be, returned, if you will, and when the fund closes out.
Okay.
So, if they've got a 3-year hold on an asset, what most of them want to do, they want to buy it from the developer when it's, either right at CO or, at say year 2 or year 3 when it's stabilized. They won't have a really large renovation or PIP that they have to do because the property, for all intents and purposes, is brand new.
Right.
So they can come in and buy it. They can hold it for their 3 years. They can cash flow that. And then when the next renovation comes, you're now at year 6, brand's coming in and saying, okay, you got to do a big renovation. Then they'll just sell it.
Right.
Again, and they'll sell it to the guy who does not mind to come in and do the renovation, because they're looking at it and their hold period, it's going to be a longer hold period, right? Because they're investors. They're doctors by day, lawyers by day. Mm-hmm. This is just, instead of buying Apple stock, they're buying a hotel.
Right. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense to me, and I really appreciate you putting it in those terms, because different people get involved in the investment side of the business for different reasons. And when you have these two different types of groups, they really come together in a nice way that, helps both sides of the equation, but mostly helps you in the middle as you're transacting the properties, which is a pretty cool place to be again. So very interesting to me. Maybe now you could give me a little bit of insight on where the money's coming from these days, because like I said at the beginning of this conversation, in particular at Alice, I keep hearing about all this outside money coming in. I think about that orthodontist or that doctor that you were just mentioning, because I know that orthodontist is making a lot of money because I'm paying him every single month for my kids' braces, and I don't think they're ever going to come off. So he's got money to invest in a hotel, and he may not have done that before. Are you seeing a lot more of that? Hey, let's play in this different real estate class right now that might be different than other cycles that we've experienced? Or maybe you have a completely different observation and I'm way off base.
No. I think you're right. I mean, again, there's guys that, this is what they do day in and day out, right? The institutional equity players,
right?
What they do is, they buy hotels, they sell hotels, they refinance hotels, all day, every day.
Right.
But then there's guys, again, like the orthodontist who, you're paying a fortune for. Mm-hmm. It's an outside investment for him. It's diversification from his investment portfolio. Mm-hmm. Again, he owns the Apple stock. He has his 401k through his practice, but this is just an alternative investment for him. So he'll get together with, let's say he has, 2 other partners in his orthodontist practice. The 3 of them will get together, do an old fashioned joint venture partnership.
Right.
And they all own a third of the deal. And, they don't run it. They don't operate the hotel. They'll hire a third-party management company who will come in and operate it. And their day job is putting braces on, teenagers.
Totally, yeah. Because, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of speaking engagements at management companies throughout the country. And I see this all the time playing out. Management company invites the folks, and they've got their outside investors there. So you've got these people that don't really understand how the hotel industry works in a behind-the-scenes kind of way, and then they're there, they're learning, they're participating, and they're really getting their hospitality education behind the investment that they make. But speaking of hotel investment, Hunter Hotel Advisors is not just your only business. The family, at some point, 31 years ago already, it is at this point, decided to start a conference. What crazy notion was going on in your dad's head that he decided to start a conference back then? And what a great notion it was, because it's become such an important mainstay on the conference calendar now for the rest of us.
This is a great. The truth be told,
yeah.
Bob Hunter was attending the NYU conference.
Uh-huh.
He was in a finance panel breakout session, and asked the members of the panel, "Hey, I'm working on a, $15 million single asset transaction. What kind of debt would you guys provide on that?" Mm-hmm. And this was in 1986, and everybody from the panel kind of looked down at him and was like, "Man, if it's under 25 million single asset transaction, we don't even touch it."
Wow.
And dare I say, they belittled him a little bit.
Yeah.
And he walked out of that room, standing leaning up against the wall on the other side was a gentleman by the name of Jerry Merkin, who at the time was editor of Hotel Management Magazine. And Bob walked right up to Jerry and said, "Jerry, if I start a conference for those of us guys in the hotel world that deal in below $25 million single asset transactions, could I count hotel management on board with me?" Jerry said, "Absolutely."
Wow.
So now we all of a sudden had a conference.
All right. Before I ask my next question, I do need to say Jerry Merkin was an amazing gentleman. I actually worked for him. He left hotel management to go start hotel business, and my first hotel industry job was at hotel business, and I had the honor of working with him at that time. So he was always a forward-thinking guy, and I'm not surprised that he immediately said, "Yeah, we're going to get behind this." So then what happened next, Lee?
At the time, Jerry was a great guy.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. At the time, all the major conferences were associated with universities, right?
Right.
Bob was at
UCLA
NYU.
was
what
Alice is now.
Was UCLA,
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So Bob went to Georgia State University here in Atlanta.
Right.
They have a hotel school. So
Mm-hmm.
he went and said, "Hey, I want to do this. Would y'all? Does the university have any interest in being involved?" And the dean quickly jumped on board and said, "Absolutely, we'll be involved."
Yep.
And that's sort of how it got started. Bob said, "I'm not the only guy in this space.
Mm-hmm.
We need a conference for those of us that play in this space." Because again, in 1986, select service was sort of the redheaded stepchild of the hotel space.
Well,
everybody wanted to be full service. Everybody wanted to be resort.
And if you think about it back then, Lee, and this is for education for the younger folks that might be listening, this is before all the major brands really became asset light. So Hilton would own a gajillion full service hotels around the world, and the select service business was really almost, even though it was there and like we grew up going into some of those hotels, it really wasn't anything like the business it eventually became just a few years later.
Oh, absolutely. Hampton Inn was in its infancy in the mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody on Wall Street, no institutional investor in his or her right mind would invest in, a Hampton Inn. It wasn't a hotel. What is, there's no meeting space. There's no F&B. What do you mean? It's just rooms and they're on the side of the interstate.
Oh my
and
God.
No, we don't want to invest in those. Major lenders did not want to lend on those projects. Select service, like I said, was, a dirty word in terms of institutional, both equity and debt. So obviously that's not the case today. As an asset class, it's proven itself.
I can't help but keep laughing about like how different it was back then. I mean, you could take a time machine and take for anybody from the 1986 hotel business and tell them what would happen 30 years later. I don't think that they would even be able to grasp all the fundamental changes that have been happening. It's such a different business now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm excited to be not just attending the 31st Annual Hunter Hotel Investment Conference, but us over here at the at No Vacancy are indeed media sponsors, and I have the great opportunity to be hosting a panel myself called Today's Hotel Management Issues and Opportunities. That's going to be taking place at 3:45 to 4:45 on the first full day of the show, and I've got some great people that are going to be on the panel with me, and that's Thursday, March 21st, 3:45 to 4:45. So I'm excited to be doing that one. I got Brad Rahinsky, for example, President and CEO of Hotel Equities on there. Nelson Knight, EVP and Chief Investment Officer with Aspel Hospitality REIT. Bo Benton, LBA Hospitality. Carmen Almos, VP of Acquisitions, Investment Capital. I know it's going to be a great one. And I got to tell you, Lee, I always have a fun time with your audience. There's something about that conference that is less stiff than NYU, than Alice. Everybody's got their Southeast on. I know I'm looking forward to sneaking out of there to grab some Gus's fried chicken across the street, which is always my favorite. But people just seem a lot more chill, and they're open to like just fun, spontaneous conversations in the hallways, in the sessions, wherever it might be.
And I agree with you. We are different from Alice and NYU. I attend both of those conferences. I get a lot done at those
conferences. And they're
great
conferences. I'm just saying that this one is different. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable out there. I love you all.
We are definitely different in that, everybody who attends, all of our sponsors, all indicate they actually get deals done here at our conference, right? I understand, NYU and Alice, there's a lot of, publicly traded companies that are there with the analysts and institutional investors that are buying their stock at millions of dollars worth of clips, right? So that tends to be the Alice and NYU world. Our world, it's all the development teams from every brand,
right?
It's the actual owner of the asset is here. I mean, the panel that you're moderating, Nelson Knight, Chief Investment Officer with Apple Hospitality REIT, right?
Yep.
Carmen Almos runs a small equity fund whose money is out of the Middle East. So she's out acquiring assets. It's Carmen. She has a couple people working with her, but for all intents and purposes, it's Carmen.
Right.
LBA, Bo Benton, he's a third-party management company, just like Hotel Equities and Brad Rahinsky. We were talking, that's who the orthodontists, we were talking about earlier. Exactly. They go to LBA and they go to Hotel Equities to manage these things for them.
Yep.
So it's our conference differs from Alice and NYU, and that it is we actually have the owners. We're not as institutional,
right?
In nature. We're more Main Street in nature. The Marriott guys told me a couple years ago they executed 20 franchise agreements as a direct result of our conference.
That is insane. Wow.
Now, this was, to give you how long ago that was when application fees were only $50,000 an application. They're now significantly more than that, but 20 applications at $50,000 a pop. I mean, you can do that off their, measly $25,000 sponsorship.
Oh my God.
That's a pretty good return on investment for them.
Right. Yeah.
That's just application fees. That's not ongoing royalties.
Right. Well, thanks for reminding me I'm in the wrong business, Lee. I really appreciate that one. Right? It's absolutely incredible. Every time I go to one of these financial conferences, and I think I've said it before on the show, I really come away wishing I was a franchise sales executive at this point. I mean, how great would that be at this time in the cycle to be doing that, especially when everyone is saying, hey, we did a record number of deals last year.
Well, and the guys who are really doing well in this space are the entrepreneurs out there, right? Mm-hmm. The guys who have put it up on the table and said, okay, we're going to take this risk. And they've made just tremendous amounts of wealth in the last, 5 to 10 years as the industry's been on this great run that it's been on. I've got clients. I mean, it's generational wealth that these guys have created by virtue of the fact they're doing business with all these brands and they're developing these hotels and they're acquiring these hotels. And just the amount of wealth that has been created in this industry in the last 10 years is absolutely astounding.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely astounding. So I think, is there anything else in regards to the conference that our listeners should really know about? I highly recommend going at this event every single year. And like I said, I look forward to being a part of it this year. I always get some great content when I'm at your show, be it with talking to the people or getting information from the panels, or just having the opportunity to do podcasts and videos with the attendees there. So I know I love it. I know you guys are going to love it. Lee, what else do we need to know about the event?
You know, if you've never been, it's an event you should attend. It
Right.
is, as Glenn, as you said earlier, it's not, all high and mighty. It's not all Wall Street. It's Main Street.
Yeah, the word I would use is approachable. If you're not as inculcated in the hospitality industry as you feel and don't have that comfort level, this is a great way to get in. Everybody's chill. Everybody's willing to talk to you. Everybody is really open, and it's a lot different atmosphere than those than the NYU and Alice, when everyone is running, got meetings. So even though people are meeting and doing deals, it just feels a little bit more casual, a little bit more open to impromptu conversations.
Yeah, and we're great for that investor
Right,
who
exactly.
goes to his brand conferences, maybe goes to an owner's regional meeting every now and then, but needs to hear about what's going on in the debt markets, needs to hear about what the brands are coming out with from a new design perspective. If when Hampton comes out with a new prototype, they're up there in one of the panels talking about that new prototype.
Yep.
If you're a developer and you're looking at thinking about doing modular construction, on your next deal, we're having a panel on modular construction. So it's a good way for people who, unlike you and I, who aren't on the conference circuit, don't go to everything, for them to come and them to learn about opportunities that they can then take back to their businesses to grow their business with.
Right. And then be sure to tune in each and every week for No Vacancy to flesh out your understanding of the hospitality industry. So go to Hunter, listen to No Vacancy. Lee, before we wrap up, if people are interested in attending the event, I suspect that you're going to get a record number of people this year, but how can people get involved in the event?
HunterConference.com is the conference website, and you can register online there. It's a very seamless and easy process.
Yep, it sure is. That's hunterconference.com. And be sure to come and see my panel. You don't want me to be all alone in a room with these guys. It's very scary. But the good thing is, if you come, you can ask them the questions that you want to ask them, because I'm not there with any preconceived idea of how the panel is going to go. It's going to be an open group discussion that gives you the information that you need to be successful. Kind of like the whole model of the Hunter Conference. So check them out at hunterconference.com, and I look forward to seeing you there. And Lee, thanks so much for being here today, man. This has been fun learning a little bit more about what's really going on in the transaction market.
Glenn, thank you. I appreciate it.
And I want to thank you guys for listening, and stick around because after the commercial break, we've got another incredible interview. But let's hear from our good friends at Red Roof, and we'll be right back.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, Glenn here. Red Roof's been using this slogan for a while: genuine relationships, real results. And I've got to tell you, from the folks that I've met and gotten to know over the number of years, this is not so much a slogan, it's just who they are and the way that they do business. Partnering with Red Roof, it gets you their significant brand awareness, seasoned management team, and an owner-operated perspective that comes with managing some 120 properties themselves. And that's in addition to their award-winning marketing department, a richest in-class loyalty program with more than 2.5 million members, and a franchisee satisfaction rate of 86%. Plus, they're #1 in online guest reviews 8 years running. But that's not all, no. Red Roof Plus, the brand extension that created the upscale economy segment, has dramatically affected owners' financial results. Then, of course, you got the Red Collection, a group of mid-scale, unique hotels that are hyper-local and inspired by each city's vibe and culture, with brand standards based on consumer wants rather than design mandates. And for franchisees looking to get into the explosively fast-growing extended stay market, well, Hometown Studios by Red Roof now has more than 50 freshly renovated properties in 35-plus markets. So today, it looks like many of the industry's best opportunities can be found under, here it comes, the same roof. Each offering genuine relationships, real results. Learn more by visiting redrooffranchising.com or call 888-473-8861. That's 888-473-8861. Tell them Glenn sent you.
Back to the show. It's No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast with your host, Glenn Hausman.
All right, everybody, welcome back. I am particularly excited for the conversation that I'm about to have, and that's because I have with me Mr. John Belden, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Davidson Hotels and Resorts. Now, John is a guy that I've known around and about in the industry, gosh, for as long as I can remember. Not to insult him, he's a very good-looking young gentleman, I would say, but I've known him for a really long time. And, John, it's just one of those funny things. I'm glad to have you here, but I can't believe I needed to get you on the podcast for us to have an extended conversation as opposed to a drive-by conference hello.
Well, I agree with you, Glenn. I sure do appreciate the reference to young. I will keep that with me forever.
Excellent. So let's get everybody oriented a little bit about you, John. How did you get involved in the hospitality industry? Did you have the dream as a little kid, or were you like me? You just wanted to be either, I don't know, an astronaut, brain surgeon, or, I don't know, lawn care technician. I don't know.
I did. I got bit by the bug pretty early. I was a line cook in a country club, and met a gentleman there who was running the club, and I just found him to be fascinating. Right. He had ran the club, but also had a side business in the fast food industry, and he had lots of respect from a lot of people. He did some amazing things as a leader. He was one of the nicest dressing men I've ever met in my life. Mm-hmm. But at the end of every day, he would shuck off his coat, and he would go in and he would help the dishwasher clean up from the day's activities. So I just found that to be an industry that was fascinating, that could produce somebody like that. So from there, I was inspired to go to Michigan State and studied hotel, restaurant, and institutional management, and then went into the consulting business with Laventhal and Horwath, and from there went to the Residence Inn Company, the original Residence Inn Company out in Wichita, Kansas, and I was there until Marriott bought us.
Wait, hold on. Take a deep. I gotta stop right there because you just stumbled onto something interesting. So you worked with Mr. Jack Boer?
I did.
Oh,
Jack
wow.
Boer, Mike DePatie, Rob Mossberg. Yeah, we had Jim Anhut. We had
wow.
Quite a cast of characters out there, all who have gone on to do some really fun things in the industry.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So let me take a deep breath here and give everybody an 8-second understanding of what you're talking about. Jack Boer essentially created the extended stay category here in the United States with Residence Inn. Then he went on to create other brands. Notably, everybody knows Waterwalk, which I believe is his latest company. Prior to that, Woodspring. Prior to that, Value Place. It seems like every company that gets bought by a major hotel company, Jack seems to have a role in. So you probably
right.
learned a whole lot from such, I'll use the word maverick hotelier who really worked outside the constraints of the traditional hotel industry.
Very much so, and his partner was a gentleman by the name of Rolf Rufus, and not only was Rolf involved in the Residence Inn Company, but the successor organization spawned Summerfield Suites and Sierra, which ultimately were sold to Hyatt and are now within the Hyatt House designation. And today, that company, LodgeWorks, has also spawned the Archer chain. So I got to see a lot of great entrepreneurialism on display in that little company.
Wow. So what did that teach you, John?
Channel your passion into the things that you love. I mean, look, our industry is terrific. It's probably the best industry in the world. We get paid to make people happy.
Yep.
And so interacting with people who are as passionate and as engaging in the things that they do, whether it's serving others in the hotels themselves, whether it's working as a team to build a hotel chain, all those things, it's being truly committed to your craft and always pushing yourself hard. Culture was a huge huge lesson that I learned at the Residence Inn Company, and I've carried that with me throughout my career.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So, what made you switch from that side of the business to focusing on the management side of the universe?
Well, as is often the case, your career meanders in places, and from the end of my career with the Residence Inn Company, I was able to join the Holiday Corporation, which owned Holiday Inns, Embassy Suites, Hampton Inns, so on and so forth. And I was on the founding team that launched Homewood Suites, and was been able to proudly watch that brand turn into something fairly significant here in the industry, and sold the development rights to Southern California to what is today Davidson Hotels and Resorts, at the time Flott and Mann Properties. And so after selling that, within a year, I had moved over to that company and have been with Davidson for the last 29 years.
Wow. So when you moved over to Davidson, what role did you have within the company? And I say this because we have a lot of younger people here who are trying to achieve, and I'd love to give them a pathway to success for somebody who's achieved so much.
Sure. Like every young professional, I wanted to be CEO the day I got there, but had to start with as being the director of development, and slowly worked my way up the career ladder, and ultimately was very, very fortunate in that I got to help acquire the company from my boss, and have been CEO at Davidson for the last 14 years.
Wow, it's been that long already.
It has. A lot of people in the office would say, "Gosh, that's really, really long."
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. I would not be one of those people, because I figure you're a sheer delight to work with. At least, based on our extended experience of me saying hello to you in different cities around the world. So
that's 2 compliments, Glenn. I appreciate it.
I know. I'm really over budget here already. So my next interview, I'm just gonna have to insult them the entire time. I gotta tell you, whenever I'm in St. Pete Beach, I can't help but think of you. I can't help but think of Davidson, because I see that Don Cesar, and I think about how rooted in place that property is, and how kind of ahead that property was in understanding inherently the authenticity of being in a location, something that is table stakes today.
Absolutely. And Host acquired that property a couple of years ago, and we were very fortunate to be selected. Actually, our lifestyle and luxury division, Pivot Hotels and Resorts, was selected to manage the property. Mm-hmm. And we took the hotel when Host acquired the hotel. It was operated by another hotel brand, and a very respected and renowned hotel brand. But really, the brand had usurped the individuality of the Don Cesar. We're not sure whether that was intentional or unconscious, but and the community really wanted its hotel back. So one of our key missions there was to bring back the Don, was to try and recreate and reconnect to the community, to the Tampa Bay area at large, and to not only bring the hotel, memories of the hotel flooding back to those people that have been going there for decades, but also to try and create a new connection with a younger generation at the property. And the Pivot team has done a magnificent job at the property. It's one of the most beautiful beaches in the world, and we've got 5 different food and beverage experiences there that we're slowly recreating into something new and exciting for the community. And the property will undergo renovations over the next few years to really bring it back to the grandeur and glory that it deserves.
I kind of feel like it's an island to itself over there, because of whatever particular rules they seem to have, there's no major giant branded hotels over there. It's almost like you folks, because I see Don Cesar as a brand in itself, a lot of smaller rough and tumble properties that have been around for a while. So it's really one of the more unique markets, I think, in the country.
It is, and it's a little bit of a throwback in that regard.
I feel like it's 1978 whenever I'm down there.
Well, it's but that's kind of the charm of it, because totally. You've got properties in beachfront properties obviously in Sarasota to the south, in Clearwater to the north, and there are lots of brands in those areas, and but very few properties that are actually on the beach or have the beachfront presence that we have, and certainly the history and again the grandeur. Where travelers are looking for experiences these days, and we need to be storytellers and not only crafting the experience that we want to convey to them, but also how we connect to the community. So we were very fortunate to start with virtually 70, 80 years of history and stories that we can surprise and delight our guests with. So we have so many connection points historically, but also lots of things today that are more current. So target-rich environment for sure, in creating some wonderful experiences there.
Yeah, it's a really cool market. For those of you listening out there, I highly recommend you going down to that area. It's real unfussy hospitality that goes on there is what I would say. So
approachable
John,
luxury is what we'd like to say.
Yeah, right, totally. So I would like to apologize for the pun that I'm about to say, but let's pivot to another topic right now. Tell me a little bit about Pivot Hotels and Resorts, which is in the Davidson family, but sort of separated. How does all that work, and why even bother having something like that?
Sure. Great question, Glenn. So Davidson Hotels and Resorts has been around for 45 years, and largely managing and focusing on hard branded assets, working with such great partners like Marriott and Hilton and Hyatt and IHG over the years.
I see where we're going. Right.
And as we saw consumer trends starting to really pick up steam on the lifestyle spectrum. And obviously, fostered by, Kimpton and such great investors like Pebblebrook and LaSalle, as they began to bring that model into the mainstream, and then the lending community and additional investors, began to give it some credence. So as we saw the confluence of all those factors, we said, this is a place we want to be. But we felt like it needed to be, it's a different business. It's still the hotel business, but the experiences you're generating are not prescriptive like they are within a brand world. They're curated and crafted to tell a story, either about the asset or about the community or so on and so forth, and brought to life very much by the food and beverage experiences that have been developed inside the property. So we knew we needed to do that a little bit differently. And if we're going to be great storytellers at our assets, we better be a great storyteller with the entity that's going to be guiding those properties. So we felt like our first story needed to be told was by incubating Pivot Hotels and Resorts outside of Davidson, and uniquely hiring only people that had spent their careers in the lifestyle space. It's different with the brands. We have these incredible tool belts that are filled with tools and systems and resources and brand standards and manuals and so on and so forth. It's easier to be successful in that environment because you just have so much at your disposal. Whereas with an independent or a lifestyle hotel, there's a tremendous amount of work to do. Again, to tell the story, to create the culture, to train and hire differently, and the demand channels are different. The systems and resources could be different. So our muscle memory is deeply embedded in the hard branded space. So again, in trying to honor the differences in lifestyle, we again not only incubated outside, but as I said, hired all these professionals that had spent their careers there, and that was probably the smartest thing we've ever done. And so now we've got two very, very successful divisions that are very comfortable in their own swim lanes.
That's pretty cool, and we all know I declared swim lanes to be the hospitality word of the year for 2018.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to use that in this interview.
No, that's okay. It's still permitted, and in this case, it really makes a lot of sense, because what you're doing is you're really setting up two structurally different entities that look at things in a very different way that complements the goals of that particular side of the company, if I said that clear enough. But are you finding that as we continue to move on, I'm seeing a lot of convergence happening out there? You mentioned storytelling. I'm seeing that as becoming more of an essential element for even branded hotels. Do you also see this convergence coming together? And maybe if you do, perhaps both of your sides of the company have a little bit they could learn from each other.
That was very well said, Glenn,
Thank you.
And you're spot on. I think the entirety, well, not the entirety, but I think so many consumers have learned from the lifestyle side that even the hard branded franchisors have said, you know what, this is not just a lifestyle trend. This is a design trend. This is a greater trend that we're seeing. And so there's a greater focus on design, even in the branded hotels. There's a greater focus on retail F&B as opposed to just, the homogenous, F&B that we've sort of done over the last 30 or 40 years in our industry.
Although I'm sure you guys make a great club sandwich. I don't want to.
We try very hard.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, in the hard branded space, it's still all about the brand. It's still all about that brand voice. It's still all about the frequent traveler programs. It's still all about the things that make those brands so successful. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the soft brands, it's identity, it's design, it's storytelling, it's activations, it's partnerships, it's the integrated marketing. And even in the soft brands, because it's lifestyle hotels that are plugged into the hard brand engines, even those are hybrid assets that still have to embrace the heart and soul and unique personality of an independent.
Right.
But the cool thing is they have access to all the powerful tools of a hard branded platform. The one thing that I'm quite proud of the Pivot team in doing is that we launched virtually 3 years ago today, but our Pivot portfolio was already in 13 cities with 20 hotels open, transitioning, or under construction. Whoa. Including nearly 40 bars and restaurants, and 6 of the properties are independent, while the remainder are part of the Autograph, Tribute, or Curio collections or other lifestyle brands.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you've got properties such as the Curio Roswell coming soon, Tribute Midtown Atlanta. That's just in Georgia, for example. I like I like this Navy Yard hotel that's coming to Washington, D.C. What's that going to be like?
That is going to be one of my favorites, I'm sure. It'll be a Thompson hotel down in the Navy Yards, and which is a new thriving mixed use community where the Nationals play. Baseball stadium, new office space, new residences, hotels. It's a spectacular new area, and that property will is slated to open in December of this year.
Wow! All right, pretty cool. So let's talk a little bit about your home, Davidson Hotels and Resorts. What's the overall status of that side of your organization, and maybe in a larger picture, what's going on in general as the way you see it in terms of some of the opportunities and challenges in the management company universe?
Well, so fortunately, within Davidson, like Pivot, we continue to be extremely successful. When we look at the portfolio at large, we enter 2019 with about 35 hotels, comprising about $841 million in portfolio revenues, which is $24 million a property. which is one of the highest average revenue per property in the industry.
Wow, that's amazing.
We project to add over $300 million in annualized new portfolio revenues this year, which will, if that plan unfolds as we hope, will bring our portfolio total to 44 hotels at the end of the year, including new properties in such cities as San Diego and Denver and Chicago, Indianapolis, Kansas City, Boston, and D.C.
Wow.
And of that, 3 properties are under construction. We've already talked about one in the Navy Yard. Another property will be opening here in the next 45 days in Denver, and a third property in Charlotte. And then we've got another 8 properties, new build or adaptive reuse, that are projected to enter the portfolio in 2020 and 21 in areas like Philadelphia, Omaha, Atlanta, Denver, and the west coast of Florida, many of which are already under construction, have broken ground at the very least, or are well underway into construction. So we've got a lot of terrific things going on in the portfolio, both on the Davidson and the Pivot side. But what's even further interesting is on the resort side. We've got a tremendous number of properties coming on board. So we've really got a 3-pronged strategy in the company. One is through Davidson, the hard branded assets, through Pivot, the lifestyle and luxury assets. But in both divisions is a resort portfolio that's we've quietly amassed about 10 properties, with another 4 that should enter the portfolio in the next 12 to 24 months. And as we've already talked about, we operate 2 of the most successful large-scale resorts in Florida, the Don Cesar and the flagship Margaritaville Resort. These 2 properties alone combine for about $130 million in revenues, include 13 F&B outlets, 70,000 square feet of event space, 2 upscale spas, 5 pools, and 2 magnificent beaches. We've also just opened Baker's Cay Resort in Key Largo, which is one of the hottest new properties in the Keys. And then further, we're undergoing a transformational renovation of a property in Kauai that will become the Sheraton Coconut Point Resort in July.
Right.
So we've got a lot going on in throughout the portfolio, and quite excited about the year ahead.
Well, I gotta take a deep breath because I need to gush a little bit. I love the folks over at Margaritaville, and the property you're talking about, the Margaritaville Hollywood Beach Resort. I've never been there yet, but I've seen a lot about it, and this is a brand that really, really excites me because I feel like they are truly a lifestyle brand. Where companies came out and said, "Hey, we're a lifestyle brand," they just meant that anyone who has a life and they have a little bit of style. This brand, I can't believe I just made that up now. This brand in itself really understands what it is a specific customer base wants, and then they developed something that really plays into all of those personality traits that a very large group of people has, and I think they're doing a terrific job. So my question to you then is, what are you seeing that's happening at that particular property that gets you to really understand and appreciate the hospitality in general, and maybe some of the lessons that you could bring to other properties to make it better connect emotionally with customers?
Well, it's again another great question, Glenn. It's the brand is really all about fun and escapism,
right?
And put that into a highly stylized environment. With a fun, energized, and lively atmosphere. Put that in a beverage forward type of environment. And at that property, what I've been most impressed with is we've got families, we've got individual leisure travelers, we've got groups from Fortune 100 companies. Everybody blends, no pun intended, blends beautifully in that property, because it's not only a beautiful property, but the brand just represents something that we all want, and that is to escape. This is a very frenetic world that we live in, and we're far too connected, and the lines between work and life have not only blurred, they've been erased. So whatever brings you to Margaritaville, you feel like you're instantly in a relaxed mood, or chillaxed as we call it. And even if you're there for a group and you have a goal, even if you're there on business, you can, once you go through those doors, you're instantly at ease. And it's just it's essentially approachable. It's casual luxury, if you will. And a lot of people, when they walk into that hotel, they are stunned at how beautiful it is, because they just had a preconceived notion about what Margaritaville would be. And I think that brand has done a great job of connecting with their customers, not just in the hotel space, but in their food and beverage operations, in their consumer goods, in travel experiences. Now they're in retirement, the retirement living business. And it's been on the real estate side, and it's been really fun to watch this brand grow up. And when we see our customers interacting with the brand, you're spot on. That connection is so real and authentic that I think this brand has got some real legs to it.
Yeah, it really does. They are just such a great company with such a focused, on-target understanding of what hospitality means to the group of people that they're attracting, and are able to deliver it with companies such as your help in a real meaningful way that connects with those guests and to get them to go to other Margaritaville properties. So before we wrap up here today, what is it that you're most excited about these days in the hospitality business? And I ask you that very vaguely on purpose.
Well, thank you for that. I guess the thing that, and this may be a little too focused on Davidson, the thing that gets me so excited about every day is culture. We have worked so hard to make this company someplace special. Culture is everything. We're very fortunate to have strong core values that support a very engaging culture, which in turn attracts some of the best talent in the industry. We're in a period of declining unemployment. Wages are beginning to rise, and it's more competitive to access talent in the droves that we need as a growing company. We trust that people will want to work for a deeply principled and fiercely competitive company that favors high energy team members who serve with love, and love is a word we use liberally in this company. And so in large part due to our culture, we've been selected as one of Atlanta's top workplaces, as well as garnering best places to work designation in cities throughout our portfolio. So I get really excited about that, because that's at the heartbeat of our success. We can have lots of tools and strategies and all of these things that we want to be able to help us grow and scale. But if we're not a great place to work in an industry that serves people with love, we've sort of missed the boat. Right.
I was going to say, let me flip that question then on you. If you've been chosen one of the great places to work, why are you such a great place to work? It's got to be more than just like, hey, I like the culture of the company. You've got to be doing something for those individual professionals.
It's funny, because culture is a funny thing. If you have to describe it, you're trying too hard. Right. But again, it drops back to sort of our core values: integrity, innovation, relationships, discipline, value creation. Pivot has the same core values we do, but they express them very differently. Be the difference. Celebrate your inner weird. Let love and intuition inform your decisions. Have each other's back. Greatness requires risk. Stay hungry. Stay humble. But everything underlying that is love. We absolutely love. Everybody says we love working for Davidson. Well, that's not really true, because Davidson's just an entity, a legal entity. What they really mean to say is we love working with each other. And when you can do that, you can do anything. And when you harness that across 6,000 team members, you can accomplish a lot for our property owners, for our investors, for our guests, for each other. And if you think about the growth we're undergoing, a lot of that is accomplished. I know this is going to sound silly. A lot of that is accomplished by love. So that's what drives me every day, is trying to continue to ensure that we have that kind of environment.
That's a beautiful sentiment, and I was going to say I love that, but then that would just be throwing back what you said. I really respect that point of view, that you're looking at it from such an emotional type of point of view. I think sometimes in business we look at things as too economic and black and white, and we have a tendency to eliminate that human element, either purposely or accidentally. So by having everything focus around that quality of love, I think it probably helps inform every decision that you folks make over at Davidson and Pivot.
It does, and it really at the end creates the output that we want, and that's we are not a management company, we're a value creation company, and we've been able to not only grow our company the way that we're proud of, but we're able to create a lot of value for our property owners, and who continue to do business with us. We've got one of the probably the most enviable client lists in the industry, certainly for a company of our size. And we're owned by KSL Capital, which is one of the largest and most respected private equity firms in the industry. So those people aren't necessarily attracted to us because we love each other at Davidson. They're attracted to us because the power of love, combined with all the other things that we've talked about here today, Glenn, really create an extraordinary investment thesis for them.
Excellent. I love it. Makes a lot of sense. I love your philosophy, and I've loved getting to have you talk with me a little bit more on today's podcast episode. Before we wrap up, John, I love to have a great segment in the show that we call Shameless Plug. So anything that you want to plug, all bets are off. Go for it.
Well, thank you, Glenn. I would simply love to thank all of our team members out there for believing in us and for coming together to help some of the most incredible clients that we work for in the industry, and as well as our owners and partners at KSL Capital. And want to thank you for continuing to shine a spotlight on our industry in such a fun and informative and educational way through your podcasts and all of the other ways in which you communicate with and throughout our industry. So that was shameless at the end
I
for
know,
you,
especially the last part. Oh God,
I felt I owed you that.
Thank you. Well, you didn't. All those nice words, I got to be honest with you, it's making me feel a little uncomfortable and a little queasy at the same time. You know, I'm used to being ignored here around my house when I'm recording this interview. So thanks very much. I want to thank John so much for being here today. Make sure you check out Davidson Hotels at perfectly enough, DavidsonHotels.com. Check them out. They do a lot of great stuff over there. And I'm John. I will see you on the road. And for all the listeners out there, if you have yet to enter our contest to win that free trip to New Orleans Jazz Fest, what are you waiting for? Go check out NoVacancyNews.com and learn all about it. And I'll be back next week. That is, unless I get taken over by the power of love and get confused and wind up hanging out at the Don Cesar for a little too long. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.